welcome back to another episode of Coach Me. I'm one of your hosts, Vic Sorrell from Nashville, Tennessee.
And I'm Candice Rooney, and I'm joining you from Austin, Texas.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dez Stephens, and I'm the founder of Radiant Coaches Academy. We are so honored to have Cory Colton here today with us. He is the owner of a firm, a coaching firm called Inflection Point Coaching. He's based in the Mid-South here in the USA. He is an executive and leader coach. He also does group coaching and team coaching, and he's going to explain all those differences to us. Welcome, Cory.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Cory. So what you do sounds very nuanced and very detailed, all those terms and everything. But before we get into exactly how it unfolds for you, I'm curious, did you find coaching or did it find you? What did that look like in your case?
That's a great question. Corporate life is my third career. So previous to that, I was in classical music, opera, actually, and before that in restaurants and hospitality. Early on in my corporate career, there were some folks in the company that were becoming full-time coaches in the company, and I thought that was really interesting, but I was concentrating on other things, and so coaching sort of stuck with me for a long time. And in my most recent role, we started talking about how to bring coaching skills internal to the enterprise, and I sort of stepped on that chance and took lead on setting the internal coaching framework with that company before I left.
Do you remember the very first time you coached and what it was like?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. First time I coached was in the middle of a training session of coaching, and it was terrifying. And missed all the subtle clues.
Please say more about that.
Don't you hate that when they spring that on you in the training?
Yes. And after the feedback came, they said, she mentioned the fact that she was going to be an empty nester 5 times and you didn't ask about it. I'm like, okay, got it.
I'm curious to know a little bit more about subtle clues. Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, so normally the thing that the person brings to be coached on is not the thing that ends up being what they want to be coached on. And so what usually happens is there will be some sort of a phrase that they use as a throwaway, or within the explanation of what they want to work on, they will use a phrase that is connected to but not really their objective. And so picking up on either the repetition of terms that they keep using that are not part of the original coaching agreement, or energy shifts or body language shifts when they're talking about specific things, usually leads to the real desired outcome. Yeah. So it's really about remaining present. It's not about your skills. It's really about your presence.
Speaking of that, what are some of the main body language things that you look for that you notice a lot?
Yeah, so for me that's really interesting because I'm a certified body psychotherapist, and so I usually notice those before I'll notice the words that keep coming up. And so for me it's either the positive shifts, excitement in the language, the voice getting stronger, smiles, laughter, or it could be the negative changes like shoulder slumping or frowns or the voice getting really quiet. So it's just really sort of being mindful of what's happening in front of you.
I love that description because a lot of people who might not know what coaching is might assume that it's a more intellectual kind of headspace method, or you're asking people questions and to some people it feels like it might be like talk therapy. And I like how the somatic work that you do is so indicative of what's beyond the words. Can you describe to our audience what that word somatic really means in the context of coaching?
Sure. So sometimes coaching, it becomes an intellectual exercise, and sometimes it is an intellectual exercise. It all depends on where the person accesses their innate intelligence. Is it through their gut? Is it through their heart or their feeling and emotional space, or is it through their intellectual space? And so some people get stuck in their native intelligence space and sort of need to be moved into a different, or don't maybe not need to be moved, but it's interesting to explore moving them into another intelligence, right? So somebody that reacts emotionally all the time, we may need to sort of lift them up into thinking things through. So for me, it's about the fact that we hold all of our experiences and our emotions in our body in one way or another. And so if something arises in the interaction that indicates that there's something else going on, there's something not being said, there's something being communicated not through words, then if we're really present as coaches, we can actually pick up on those and catch those threads.
What enables things? I was just so
Yeah, clenching
Yes, and
teeth,
then I'll start
like that. Like, you know, is it that obvious, like clenching teeth and like tight shoulders, and or is it more subtle than that?
It might be either. It depends on what it is that they're, you know, that's arising for them. And so it could be as subtle as saying a sentence and then at the end of the sentence looking down and away, right? So something happened in the shift. They're thinking about something as they're saying it, or something is arising for them that causes them to move down and away, or lower their voice, or come out of their power, either physically or vocally. That's indicating that there might be something to be curious about there.
Okay, what does it mean to come out of your power?
I think it means different things for different people. I am personally a very gut instinct leader. So I lead from my gut, even though my innate types, personality types are heart-based. My most access is to my gut instinct and my intuition. And so sometimes for me, coming out of my power is overanalyzing, right? Trying to play chess and figure out who I need to stay ahead of and what I need to do ahead of time. And so sometimes I just have to bring myself back down and say, all right, what do I really want to do here? What do I think is the right decision and why?
Okay, that makes total sense, and it kind of segues to the next question, which was about what you said before about allowing things to rise for people. And so I'm curious, how does that happen, and how can you create a container that encourages that for your client?
Yeah, great question. Isn't it funny how when you ask a great question, people say, that was a great question. I would say a couple of things. I think when you think about the core competencies of training, building trust and safety, right? So there has to be that relationship and trust and safety there. They have to at least believe that they trust you, even if it's a first session. So you have to have that as a basis. You have to allow space. So you may be using reflective inquiry and reflecting back to them their own words, which they may hear in a different way when someone else says it. So do that and then let that land. So it's about leaving space for things to shift and arise. It may be that you ask a really great question because something makes you curious. And you know, as a coach, I've done this in the past. I'm sure everybody has this issue. Sometimes we stack really great questions, right? So we might ask 3 questions in the course of asking 1 question. So they don't know which question to answer. So be curious, ask the good question, reflect back to them their words, and then just let it sit, right? So letting things arise is really about just making space and being present.
Cory, in regards to leadership coaching, do you feel like most clients are looking to develop better leadership skills just in the workplace or also outside of work?
You know, no matter what the label is, as soon as the door closes, all coaching is life coaching, right? So it could be that they're looking to build more leadership skills in the workplace only, but that's naturally going to spill over into their own presence in other areas of their lives. And like I said, sometimes the thing that they come to you for is not the thing that they actually end up working on. I had one client who was a physician leader who was wanting to uncover more skills being a leader in a physician world, who actually ended up really wanting to work on how to be more present and powerful in their own life, no matter what the situation. So I think it just depends on the person. And, you know, we bring our whole, if we're authentic, we bring our whole selves to whatever we're doing. And so, you know, it's all life coaching.
Thank you for that description. And this is why, in the world of coaching, since we're only about a 40-year-old industry, I've noticed that life coaches sometimes have an inferiority complex, that they're not a leadership coach, they're not an executive coach, they're not a corporate coach, they're not a business coach, right? There's almost this, oh, I'm just a life coach. I just, talk about life issues. And I'm really glad to hear, that's my experiences as well, is when I am in a corporate coaching setting, once that door closes, I love that analogy you just used, it really becomes more of a life coaching session.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, if there's teamwork issues or delegation issues or communication issues, those are personal issues. Those are personal growth and professional growth issues. And oftentimes my client might say, I feel really lonely at the top. And I feel like everyone's mad at me because they all feel overworked and underpaid. And when I walk through the hallways, people, wince, and I work too much and I miss my family and I'm not taking care of my health.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does become more of a life coaching session. So thank you so much for that description.
Yeah, no problem.
So sometimes we like to do sort of a coaching example or sort of like a game, which is giving people an opportunity to sort of see how coaching happens. So let's say you were game and you were willing to play along. Would you prefer to be coached or would you prefer to do the coaching?
Oh, I'm a terrible coaching client. And so probably I would prefer to do the coaching.
Okay. Would you be willing to coach Candice?
Sure. Is
Sort of
Candice
give an
willing to be
example of
coached?
how.
Okay, yes, let's go for it.
Okay, good. Hi, Candice.
Hi, Cory.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, good. What would be helpful for you to talk about today?
I guess I am curious to learn a little bit more about bringing out the leader in me, because I notice that I have leadership qualities, but I don't feel like I really take advantage of that or really know how to showcase that. And if I feel like I do, sometimes I feel a little too pushy.
Okay, so thanks for that. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by leadership?
So, that's okay. I guess the way I see it is more in like in the workplace, or I guess I could see it in my personal life too, but it's guiding people. It's like helping people to be their best or do their best. And I feel like I can see people's qualities, like their good qualities and not so good qualities, but I see where people can shine versus expect people to always be perfect in everything they do. So I feel like I can help others, but I don't know. I just kind of do my thing. And then, if I feel like I'm like, oh, well, trying to help someone, I feel like I could be too pushy or too much of like a know-it-all. And so then I feel insecure about it. And I just tend to kind of step back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you feel like you're coming across as a know-it-all. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you feel like it's shutting people down.
Yes, it can.
Okay, but my words, not yours. I just wanted to clarify that. So when you think about leadership within your own mind, how would you be showing up differently?
I guess, I don't know, like I consider myself like a kind person and a respectful person.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just softening how I approach things or how I say things, or not always feeling like coming off as if I have the right answer, but pushing back a bit and letting someone kind of tell me versus me tell them. So just softening the approach.
Okay, so is that what you really want to focus on, is actually how you can soften that approach or show up differently, as opposed to the question of your presence?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Let's start that.
Okay, so you mentioned a couple of times words like know-it-all or having the answers or being pushy and wanting to soften the approach. So if someone came to you that was on your team with an issue, what might be some other ways that you might respond to them?
So normally I would probably tell them what to do.
Okay.
So I guess maybe walk through it with them on how they feel they can solve the issue, and then offer my input, but let them start.
Okay, great. So what might that look like as opposed to what's happening now?
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, so say I'm coming to you and I have an issue that I don't know how to quite solve, and I want some help. So what would the first thing be how might you approach it first?
Okay, so it could be, okay, Cory, can you tell me a little bit about what the issue is and what do you think would be the best next step?
Okay, good. And how does that feel to do that as opposed to what you might normally do?
A lot better. It feels a lot softer, like more in this together.
Okay, so in this together, is there another word that you can use for that?
I don't know.
Okay, so in this together is, to me, comes across as powerful. So collaborating, working on something as a team. What else might be different? So I come to you and I say, okay, well, my idea is such and such, but I'm having this barrier here. What might be another step that you can take?
So I'm having this barrier. Okay, let's look at the barrier, and then maybe I could give some suggestions, and then continue the conversation, I think, but also acknowledge the person for giving their ideas, for not being afraid to share what they think is a good solution.
Okay, great. So making a safe space for them to raise their own responses. Okay. And when you think about your original goal of wanting to be a leader that has a little bit softer approach, how does that align what you just said?
It definitely feels a lot better. Like, yeah, not so difficult, like very doable.
Okay, and how's that different from when we first started?
Before I was feeling more, I think just like that insecurity of me, like, oh, do this, do that, like that. Like I said, that pushiness, but now I'm like, okay, you can lead through guidance and more collaboration. Feel softer.
Okay, good. Softer. That's a word that you brought up a few times. Good.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do with that going forward?
Implement that into anything, I guess, moving forward, where I find myself in that type of position.
Okay, good. And how will you know you'll be successful?
Because I know I'll be successful.
Okay. You'll know it when you know it.
I'll know it. Yeah, I'll know what I know. And I think
Okay.
practice makes perfect.
Okay, good. So do you need anything else to make that happen right now?
No, that was great. Thank you. Of course, more guidance. I enjoyed that. That was a great exercise. I learned something.
Okay, good. Good. Excellent. Thank you.
I love watching coaching. I love it. Let me just say something I observe, which is part of what futurists predict about coaching in general, which is leaders will start coaching their teams versus dictating to their teams.
Right.
So Candice is doing naturally what the coaching industry calls the coach approach. And the number one reason that U.S. corporations lose employees is typically middle management. You know, the exit interview says, I don't like my boss. I'm quitting because of my boss.
Yeah.
And the middle managers, these leaders, are learning that if they start coaching their teams, they're going to be more successful. So I just witnessed that in real time. I love it.
Good. Yeah. Thanks, Candice, for letting me go through that with you. We call that laser coaching.
Oh, thank you.
10 minutes or less.
Something that I noticed too that seems so important that happened right off the bat. Let's make sure we're using shared language, clarification, right? You know, to make sure that I'm coaching you to a place that you're intending to go, or that we're even in alignment. I noticed that immediately, which that's life in general, right? If we're using the same word to talk about two different things, then it's probably not going to end well.
Yeah, digging under the definitions.
I hope the audience is really witnessing the simplicity, but also the complexity of what Cory was just doing and what Candice was doing. There's this beautiful synergy that a coach and a client have together, and it's a result of the simple yet powerful process that coaching does. This is not something that Cory learned overnight. This is not something that Cory necessarily even had to go to school for in a way. He innately probably was born a coach. He stepped into coaching. Coaching found him. He found coaching, the law of attraction right there. And I'm just really appreciative of people like Cory who have really established themselves so well inside of the coaching industry and are so confident and sure, I'll coach somebody for 10 minutes on an interview. I love it. This is, I think, what's really missing is people don't really know what it looks like, what it smells like, what it tastes like. And that was just a great example.
Oh, well, thank you. And I think if we can help our leaders in corporations understand how to do that kind of drive-by coaching, right? So my success has always come from, as a leader, about having the right solutions, right? But not really, right? I had a big shift when I stopped leading frontline employees and started leading directors and senior managers. I had to have a huge shift in my leadership because directors and senior managers don't like to be told what to do. They want to have a conversation. And so my team started indicating to me that I needed to shift the way I was thinking. And so it was about those drive-by conversations where they would bring an issue, not be sure if what they were thinking was the right thinking, and for me to tell them, yeah, do that, or no, do it this way, shuts down their curiosity and their creativity, as opposed to me saying, sorry, I have, virtual work, we've got little animals running around, as opposed to me saying, well, what do you think would happen if you tried it that way? Or what's important to you about trying it that way? And what barriers do you see coming up and how can we avoid them? And being in that space of curiosity, I think, helps people to move into their lifted up thinking.
I just want to circle back around to something you said, because I think it's so important. You said that if someone's coming from a heart space, let's say that's their language, that's where they typically come from. I'm one of those people, by the way. So if I come to you, I'm your client, I'm in my heart, I'm in my emotions, I'm in my feelings all the time. That's my comfort zone. And I don't necessarily want to go to that intellectual space, or maybe I'm aware that I'm instinctual at times. Is the goal of that to balance me out if I'm too much in my heart space? Is that why you want to maybe draw me out of that place?
Well, so I think, and this is something I'm still learning, I think it's a balance, right? So especially now during the pandemic where people are in a place that they're not used to with a lot of disruption and change. Sometimes as a coach, what you just need to do is listen. Now that's not traditional coaching, but sometimes people just need to be able to have a space where they feel safe, right, to talk or vent. And in my mentor relationships, I do get dinged for this sometimes. So being honest, we're all still learning. Sometimes I will say to somebody, okay, right now you're doing a lot of thinking. What happens if you shift into your heart or your gut space? What is the answer different? How's the answer different? And I had one mentor, master certified coach, say to me, not everybody wants to be taken into their heart space. Cut it out. You have to ask permission. So it's really about the safety, trust and safety, finding out as a coach, what do you need right now? Do you just need time to talk and vent, or do you want me to ask you questions? Do you want to think about this in a different way? And so coming to that desired outcome mutually is the thing to do. But especially now, some people just need a place where they can talk. and
I like the
taking.
thought of it's more of an invitation,
Mhm.
an invitation to go. I think of coaching as head space, heart space, gut space, and root space. And
Mhm.
so if I'm inviting a client to go to a different area, I like that approach better. That's really helpful.
Yeah, and sometimes I get dinged from that. You didn't ask permission, right? So
Cory, did you have an inclination to get into with Candice why there was a hesitancy around being unkind, or she felt this need to be soft for fear of something? Was there anything around that for you when you were coaching her?
yes, that was one of the places where I felt like I could have gone, and rather than doing the coaching and not worrying about time and digging in, I was trying to manage the time, which we get
Yeah.
into as coaches sometimes as well. So there's always an entry, and the entry will be different depending on the context, the relationship. I might have been worried that if I dug into that in this situation without knowing Candice, that she may not have felt safe enough. But there was obviously a question around what's meaningful to you about what you just said about kindness. What's coming up for you around that. But
Because my inclination when I was listening to her, I was thinking in my mind, what messages have you received that, that's inappropriate to not to be to have an edge or to,
mhm.
that was
Yeah,
my,
I think
Yeah.
cultural sensitivity as well. Candace is from Honduras originally,
Oh.
and that culture is completely different in Central America than where she's living currently in the U.S. and where she's moving soon to live in Europe soon. So she's what I call a cosmopolite, moving around and having different experiences. So as coaches, I love how they're, like you said, an entry point. There are many places we can go. And this is what I say to my peers is coaching is easy for this reason. Your clients give you so many opportunities to enter into their space, that trusted space, and you can frankly start from a lot of different angles, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, Vic, I think that's rooted deep somewhere. I think it does have a little bit to do with growing up in Honduras. That'd be something I need to explore more. But there's definitely something there.
Sounds
Yeah.
like a good topic for a future coaching conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming from the Northeast and living in the South for many years, my native approach might be different than my learned approach, right? So, and it also depends on the relationship and how long the relationship is. If I have a long coaching-client relationship, I might say, okay, hold on, here it is again, what's happening? But since we didn't really have the relationship built, and it's a balance. So my big learning from learning how to coach was don't coach the spreadsheet, right? So I found myself in a coaching session where the person was going through a process of trying to build a spreadsheet to figure out how they were going to become more green sustainable in their house. And I found myself coaching the spreadsheet, and I was bored. And it's because I shouldn't have been coaching the spreadsheet. I should have been coaching their relationship to the spreadsheet. Why do you need the spreadsheet? Who might you be if you didn't do the spreadsheet? How can you experiment with this and have fun with it? So I'm always trying to balance that between coaching the spreadsheet and coaching the relationship to the spreadsheet.
Use that. Coach the client, not the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So, Cory, we have a question from Facebook, and it is, what is the difference between executive coaching and leadership coaching?
Semantics. So executive coaching, you would be coaching someone who considers himself an executive or is moving into an executive realm, right? And so as much as they say that you really don't have to know the industry to coach, that is true. However, I think it does help in context sometimes to have the context, because when someone's moving from a middle management role into an executive role, there are a different set of considerations. And I think it helps for the coach to have that background to understand what's lying behind some of the questions that may be coming up, or something that they may need to be aware of as they're going through the process. But really, it's all semantics. Leader coaching, executive coaching. I do find there's a little bit different process in career coaching, because then some people get into building resumes and cover letters and interview techniques, which is not mine. If I were doing career coaching, mine would be about somebody transitioning into a new part of their career, not helping them interview for that career. So there's some differences there, but executive and leader coaching is really the same thing. It's all about the person's presence, how they lead people. It's just that it does help, I think, for a coach to have some executive experience. If they're coaching executives, it also helps to build credibility with executives that you might be coaching.
Very interesting. Is there anything else about what you do and how you do it that you would love to incorporate at this point?
Yeah, well, one of my avatars, one of my coaching client types would be spiritual leaders. I'm an ordained interfaith minister as well. So I love that process when I'm coaching spiritual leaders, because there's a common language factor that I can use with them that I might not bring into a corporate environment. So it'd be interesting for me to figure out how I bring those principles in without using that language. So that might be something interesting for me to continue working on. And then there's this whole body psychotherapy piece, which there is a word for it in coaching. It's somatic coaching. But how do I bring that in a way that is helpful to the client when they're ready to have that experience? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And perfect segue in that, when clients are ready to have that experience, where do they find you? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, great question. So I have a wonderful website. I'm just starting to build my business. I just recently left my corporate career. So some people have said I'm the best kept secret that nobody knows about. And so thank you for allowing me to do this, because it helps as well to be able to have these conversations. And I'm just now figuring out how to build those access points. But I do have a website. It's inflectionpointcoaching.net. And I also have a LinkedIn and a Facebook and an Instagram page, so they can find me those ways. And I'm finding a lot of the client base is coming to me through friends of friends, referrals from other clients, people who know people, right? Because everything is about relationships.
There comes that spiritual principle again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any, Dez, Candice, any other thoughts, questions?
No, that's good. Thank you. That was wonderful.
Yeah, it really was. Thank you so much, Cory.
Thank you. I'm really appreciative of you allowing me to connect with you guys today.
It's been our pleasure.
People, coaches like you, are in private practice because you have so much to offer. And I'm going to go check out inflectioncoaching.net. What was that? Inflectionpointcoaching.net. I'm going to go there right now.
Yeah, thanks so much. It'll give me an interesting on the website.
We look forward to part 2. Because there were so many seeds laid in this conversation. We've got to go again on this one.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I'm happy to.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much,
guys.
Cory.
Have a good
Thanks
weekend.
everybody for watching, and we'll see you all next time on Coach Me.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.